From the Fantasy Formula Podcast, I'm Paul. That's Ben. We are going to build our teams and look back at the winners of last year and to have some pretty serious reactions, I think, to all the prices that's going on.
Absolutely. And real quick, so this is my first time joining you this season. I know you've done a lot of the legwork on the on rule updates, on how things work in general, on driver bios. So thank you for doing that. We're still going to talk fantasy extensively, but we're not going to limit ourselves to that just that sandbox.
Yeah. So for broad brushstrokes last year, these are all the race winners for all the races. So for Bahrain, here's the loadout of the person who won and how many points they got. For Saudi, here's the loadout, and here are
Nice.
the So if you look at it, the winning team effectively used their 3X chip over Limitless. I thought Limitless was the best chip in the game. It's not. It's your 3X multiplier. You're actually having one 3X and one 2X, so you're getting 5X. You're turning the value of 2 players into the value of 5 players. These are your P1, P2, P3 globally last year. And this is their entire driver lineup for every race they had and where they use their chips.
Nice.
So we're going to start out with Leapers 1. They all seem to use the majority of their chips in the latter half of the season. So, and the reason why I'm guessing is because at that point, you have had the chips in your back pocket that you can use them if you needed to, but also you can improve your driver's lineup as the season goes if you trade off, trade on, do it right.
And so as long as you have drivers that you're familiar with who are known to be high performers, who are part of a constructor that had a great car coming out of the 24 season, you've got a pretty decent data set. But I see your point where there have been changes. Drivers are not who they were last year. Hey, Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
And so taking the time to really suss out who is going to be strong, who is on the rise, which constructor has that one engineering team member who's got that epiphany to make their car that much better.
The next thing I wanted to go into was how Leapers won. So we started out with Perez, Stroll, Sonoda, Zhou Guanyu, Bottas, which were not good drivers, but he had Ferrari and Red Bull, which were arguably the top two of the top constructors.
Mm-hmm.
This guy ended up ending the season with Norris, Leclerc, and Russell on his team as drivers.
Yeah.
And how did he do that? So he sold Red Bull, got McLaren because they were on the rise, had Ferrari, and he was able to get Norris, he's able to get Piastri and Sargent on his team. Then traded for Leclerc, got in Mercedes, had Mercedes and Hamilton for a little bit, good to go. And then he had right here, he started having Leclerc, Sainz, and Hamilton with Mercedes and Ferrari. But he had 3 dynamite drivers, of which he could use a no negative and have it really help, and he could use his 3X and have it be max help. This sort of play of buying and selling to when, as somebody's value increases, there has to be somebody below you to sell them, buy somebody cheaper, so you can take that surplus money and put it towards somebody better. Yeah. That's the way it looks like it needs to roll. But let's confirm it. Let's look at number 2. So this guy started out, Matt's Entertainment with a 4. This guy started out with Verstappen, Hamilton, V-Carb, and Ferrari. And that obviously didn't work out so well. So he used his wild card, got Red Bull and Ferrari. See, so he got to where we are now, and he realized, no, I need to have 2 strong constructors or I'm not going to last.
Mm-hmm.
And he hit the only driver he could afford at the time was Perez. Got it. Well, then he went ahead the next race and he swapped Perez for Leclerc. So now here he is back with 2 strong constructors with both Ferrari drivers. And then he goes, swaps it around again, gets back on McLaren, gets Mercedes in with that money. However, that money worked. He was able to get Norris and Hamilton. Then he got back to Norris and Piastri and kept that going.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out where I can go, who did good or who whatever. This guy just let it ride.
Yeah. Well, so let's do that. If we could zoom back out a little bit to kind of the 10,000-foot level.
Yeah.
With your understanding of what these guys did to maximize their strategy, let's talk initial team, like what is the lesson to be pulled in terms of initial week one team formation? What should your priorities be?
So
Okay.
the whole season, the basic strategy needs to be you have your 2X driver as good as he can be, and you're buying and selling your in the middle to get eventually give yourself two good constructors, and then you want to find a way to get another strong second driver so you can use your 3X chip at that point once you have
Gotcha.
your two good drivers.
All right,
So
so
you're
so
good.
let's take a look at the constructors real quick. Interestingly, McLaren is the top price constructor at $30 million even. I mean, which again, it makes sense. They had what was widely regarded as the fastest car last season. They had two decent drivers, which is really nice for them. But $30 million, we'll see if they've been able to keep up with the rule changes that we'll go over in a little bit.
Yeah.
Ferrari's at 27.1 million, and I think a lot of that valuation comes from the 1-2 punch of Leclerc and now Hamilton. So
It has
that's
to be. It
yeah.
has to be.
Um, then you got Red Bull in third, where and
Okay.
what's interesting is you had oh, what's his name, Max Verstappen take the individual drivers championship last year, even though you could see down the stretch other constructors were improving at a greater rate in terms of upgrades. So I think that's very interesting to see
And
how far down they are from McLaren in that regard.
I'll chime in right here for that on that. So McLaren and Ferrari both have two veteran drivers.
Hmm.
Red Bull and Mercedes both have a rookie. As soon as Kimi Antonelli and Liam Lawson come out of the gate and both pull up, in the top six,
Hmm.
these values are going to very quickly ascend to catch up with McLaren and Ferrari.
Sure. Oh, and so where I think it gets really interesting is so Mercedes is at 22.7 mil. I became a fan of George Russell last season just because of his level of reliability. He had a couple wins. He had one taken away from him that was heartbreaking.
Oh, that
Um,
was ridiculous.
that was rough. But they, like you said, you got Kimi Antonelli who just turned 18 years old. Holy cow! I'm turning 41 in a few months.
Right? Right.
Anyway, that's not depressing. Um,
Uh,
but what's interesting, I think, as you get into the lower tier now, you have Williams at 13.1 with the addition of Carlos Sainz. It's interesting to see the jump in value for Williams as they've dropped Sargent and they've got Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon now. Let me jump over to the drivers. I mean, they still have Yuki Tsunoda, who's just he's there,
he's
I
there.
feel
And
bad for the guy. But I wonder how long he'll be there.
when I was following it in the offseason, one of the F1 websites started listing him as the reserve driver for Red Bull.
Really?
Yes. And so when I was
Wow.
prepping driver bios, one of the websites, and I forget which one, but they were reporting him as the reserve driver for Red Bull. So
So that's interesting.
my guess is he was close to not being in that seat anymore.
And then you got Haas, second from the bottom,
Ollie,
and they got Ollie Behrman,
Ollie
who
Behrman, man, and Esteban Ocon.
Ollie Behrman. It'll be really interesting to see. He did great in a Ferrari in his debut. How will he do in a Haas? But coming in and being a kind of rookie, I don't know.
So and when I watched, because your boy nerded out and watched all the preseason testing.
Wait,
Yes, that
what?
is
No.
24 hours of F1 that, don't get me wrong, I wasn't just sitting there. I was like doing other stuff too. But
Sure.
basically, there's a big talk about whether or not a lot of these rookies are true rookies, since a lot of them have been in F1 seats before.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
so it's not, and so technically there should be, six rookies on the grid. But is Liam Lawson a rookie? He's raced two different years in Formula One, but he's never had a seat. So technically this is his rookie year, but he has a number of Grand Prix under him. I'm counting them all as rookies because they're rookies.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you're right. Oliver Behrman, he has like he raced and did pretty well with two teams last year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And then again, rounding out the bottom is Kick Sauber, who has two new drivers this year. There's no more Zhou Yu, and Valtteri Bottas is the reserve driver for Mercedes. He's just waiting for Kimi Antonelli to fail.
well, and so two things about that. Bottas, he raced with Mercedes for like 5 years. He was
Yeah,
part
he
of
was the
their
number two driver for Hamilton.
yeah, and he got the second place in the drivers championship.
Have you been watching Drive to Survive at all? They're really focusing in on Hamilton making the great divorce from Mercedes. He was like, I was waiting for the phone call and it has not come. Mercedes. So I feel for him, because he seems to be well beloved within the Formula One circle.
Yeah.
It's just, he tried to stake his claim with Kick Sauber, and they just didn't have enough
They didn't.
support. And I know they had bad crew and pitting issues early on.
And speaking of pitting issues, just saw on the news that Red Bull's former director of racing is going to take over Kick Sauber as team principal. Director of racing. So basically, they're the person, for the best of my knowledge, I know, no, put in the comments if I'm wrong, but they're the person who direct the race day evolution, including the pit crew. So as far as building teams,
I'm going to try getting the two best constructors I can, which on paper right now are McLaren and Ferrari.
Because they're the ones that don't have the rookie drivers. They're the ones with all the established talent.
Right. So
yeah.
but then the next step is to take the least sexy driver pick from those constructors.
From
So,
any constructor, or
no, from those two constructors. So I'd go McLaren and Oscar Piastri.
okay.
I'll just see if I can afford this. And then if I can go Ferrari, and so so this is already gets interesting.
Yeah, you're already screwed.
I can't even afford Leclerc or Hamilton. I've only got 19 million left. Gotcha. Okay, well, so then I'm going to back out of that strategy. I can get McLaren, but now that means I've got 18 million left to fill out the rest of my drivers. I don't think I can afford to do that.
Let's swap it the other way around. Let's get the bottom 4 drivers.
I still can't do that. If I go bottom 4, Hulkenberg, Hajar, and Bartoletto, I have $0.1 million left, and I'm still absent an entire driver.
You can get Mercedes.
Oh no, I said if I go Ferrari and McLaren.
Oh yeah, no way.
All right, so what can I do? Can I do Red Bull? Okay, I've got 4.9 million left if I do that. No, I can't do that. So I can do Mercedes.
You can get Mercedes
because now I don't have anyone from Mercedes on my team.
You can get George Russell.
What's that?
You can get George Russell. You can get Lewis Hamilton or Oscar Piastri if you go Ferrari and Mercedes.
Bartoletto for Behrman, because I feel like because again when you're going these bargain bin racers, you're looking for who will not crash for you.
Exactly.
The question is, who is the number 1 driver on Ferrari? Is it Hamilton or is it Leclerc?
I think it's Leclerc.
You think so?
Lewis Hamilton is a strong driver, right? So he has to relearn this car, and he hasn't had much time to do it. I'm not saying he's a bad call, but there's no way out of gambling this season.
Sure.
You know, it's just going to be try strategy and hope it works. It's not like 2 years ago when it was clean cut. Not like last year when there was obviously a winner.
Right.
This year it's the wild, wild west.
It really is.
Okay.
I'm going to do one eggs in the basket Ferrari team.
Okay.
Like we just looked at. But then I'm going to try one because if I do Mercedes and Williams, that's a combined $35 million for my constructors.
Yeah.
But that would also allow me to get George Russell and Carlos Sainz. So now I've got representation over both of my constructors. And I can still get kind of mid-tier performers, which would give me some flexibility, up or down flexibility as the season goes on.
As soon as Sainz starts finishing in the top 10, like as soon as Sainz is your 9th driver, like he's worth the money then at that point.
But let me ask you your first impression of, okay, so Sainz is Williams now.
Yeah.
Sainz has a couple of wins under his belt that are all his own because he was kind of representing himself, even though he was Ferrari last year. Sainz for $13 million in a Williams suit. What is your first thought?
I mean, he's still Carlos Sainz. It's a gamble. If the car is, how about this? If the car is there for him, then absolutely, I think he's well worth it. I think he'll do better in a Williams than a lot of people. If you can get Sainz on your team, he could show up because as soon as Sainz starts doing well, his value is going to spike.
Sure. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine to 2 years ago. Let's make a Max and Red Bull combo and see what we can fill the rest in with.
Like it. So I'm going to make believe that he's still going to go. Since we're going back, we're going to go Red Bull and Mercedes.
I was just doing the same thing. Look at that.
Perfect. Right. Well, and a reason why getting a Red Bull and Mercedes build is smart is because they both have very strong rookies.
Yeah.
As soon as both of these rookies hop in here and they place in the top 10, that's money, you know?
Now we can't do it.
Can't do it.
A million shy. So we would have to drop Mercedes, and then your next best constructor option, according to Fantasy Formula One, is Williams. Ugh. But
I
maybe at this point, do you say, okay, Williams, and now I have just enough money to take something, so that harkens back to our conversation about signs. Can he do something
Yes.
cool?
Right, because I don't know what to do. But the prevailing knowledge is you have to take good constructors, but if you do, you don't get a driver that's worth anything to DRS.
Yeah.
As soon as you get a strong DRS driver, you can't afford two strong constructors. You can only get one, and then you have to roll the dice with Williams.
So yeah, interesting what they've done to the adjustments here. They've really tied a hand behind our backs here, but it keeps it interesting, and that's
It
why we come
does.
back. So
Absolutely. All right. Do you have any parting shots or saved rounds?
watch Drive to Survive. It's a good time. You've got, as of record, a day and 10 hours to get your teams locked in. Don't forget and pay attention. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Cheers.